This is the OFN Today on the Ourlads Football Network as we recap most of Week 9. Jets and Pats will wrap up Week 9. We'll also take an early look ahead at some of the key games for Week 10. We had some controversy. We had some key injuries as usual. So a very busy week in the NFL. How's everything going, Ryan?
What's an NFL week without controversy and injuries, right?
Unfortunately. And as we get later into the season, the controversies get more magnified,
Yeah.
which is what happened in 2 games this week, which we'll talk about a little bit later on.
Yeah, what's an NFL week without an inexplicable loss by the Chargers, right?
Absolutely. So we'll get into that one too. The big one last night to kick off the show was the Saints just hammering the Tampa Bay Bucks. And Sean Payton once again likes to kick butt as a dog in a division contest. So the Saints bury the Pats. And I was interesting. I was going to play a clip from earlier today on ESPN. It was Rex Ryan. And it was so short, and it would probably have taken me 10 minutes to do it. I said, well, it's too much just so I can get like 2 words out of him. But he talked, basically, he was talking about how Tampa Bay is really struggling. They lose 1 football game, and all of a sudden, the Bucks go from 1 week being right there, Super Bowl contenders, Brady's killing Belichick, to the Bucks are struggling.
Well, in fairness, they did look terrible against the Giants on Monday. So, in a 6-day span, they dropped 2 stinkers. They just got away with it against the Giants and didn't get away with it against the Saints. Look, they're not struggling, but before they played the Giants last weekend, people were ready to crown them as the team to beat in the NFC, and no one is crowning them as that 2 days later. Now they're like, oh, they're a wild card. They're not going to win their division. So things turn fast in 6 days.
Yeah, and this is also a team that is now officially 0 for 1 with Antonio Brown. Not only 0 for 1, but 0 for humiliating 1 with Antonio Brown. So, look, if they lose to Carolina this week, which is going to be a close game, it's going to start happening. They'll start. Right now, it's just a game. That doesn't really, 2 games, okay. Then we'll see what happens. But anyway, do you think this is more though of a matchup problem than anything? Maybe the Bucks just don't match up well with the Saints.
I think there's something to that. The way to get to Tom Brady, whether he's with the Patriots or the Buccaneers, the way ever since the Giants gave you the blueprint in Super Bowl 42 was to get after him with 4 rushers, not have to bring blitzers and worsen your pass coverage, to get to him with the straight defensive line. And the Saints can do that between Cam Jordan, and they have a good pass rush with 4 guys. And Malcolm Jenkins can cover Gronkowski better than most safeties can cover tight ends because he's got some corner in him. I think that's what it is. I think it's a bad matchup for the Bucks on both sides of the ball. I think the Saints have the advantage on both sides of the ball. And we saw, obviously, I've been high on the Saints all year. I've kind of bit my tongue as they've struggled, but Michael Thomas came back. Emmanuel Sanders was there. They had their full complement of weapons. Alvin Kamara's playing like an MVP, and all of a sudden now people want to say, oh, maybe the Saints are the team to beat in the NFC.
It's a long season, the NFL. It may not appear that way compared to the other leagues, but 16 games. Yeah. It's just in today's society where every week they want to blow everything out of proportion. Everything gets magnified, and it's crazy. It's just the way it's always going to be now with the way the media reacts to every single win or loss in the NFL. Just look at Pittsburgh and Dallas. I mean, come on. I mean, if Pittsburgh thought that they had to beat Dallas by 30 points, and that game decided whether they went to the playoffs or not, they would have won by 50.
The Pittsburgh Dallas game. Dallas clearly got a huge upgrade at quarterback. I mean, DiNucci clearly wasn't ready to play against the Eagles. It clearly is, not an NFL quarterback at this junction. Not that Garrett Gilbert is great, but he was functional, and it gave the Cowboys a chance. Pittsburgh kind of sleptwalked through that game, but I think going back to Saints Bucks where we opened, Greg. I mean, there is such a thing, and I think I've made this comparison before, like to a basketball dream team or to maybe those Eagles teams where what were they called, the dream team with like Nnamdi Asomugha and those guys. Like, there's a thing to having too much talent, too many stars, too many guys who want the ball. Mike Evans 4 for 64 isn't utilizing him. I think they ran the ball only 4 times in the game, so you're not using Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. When you have too many weapons, you get caught in trying to spread the ball around too much, and you look foolish. And that's
NFL record.
Yeah.
5, because they counted the quarterback run. So yeah. NFL record 5 rushing attempts in a football game.
Yeah, and that's what happens. You have too many weapons. Oh, we got to get Antonio his targets. We got to get Evans. We got to get Godwin.
That's right.
And you're spreading yourself too thin. I think the Bucs are in danger of that.
Meanwhile, in the NFC, now that the Saints had a big win, Green Bay basically stays ahead of New Orleans after beating the Saints this year. They had little problem with the 49ers, and they should not have had any problems with the Niners with all the injuries that San Francisco has had. And so finally, Green Bay goes out, gets their revenge, and beats the Niners. And by the way, this started an 0-for-3 week for the NFC West, with 2 NFC West teams losing to AFC East teams. That's pretty interesting. But the Niners go down. Aaron Rodgers throws for 4 touchdown passes, and the Packers remain in a pretty good spot now, tied with the Saints at 6-2. But like I said, they've already beaten the Saints, so that right now they have the 2nd seed just behind Seattle, even though Seattle and Green Bay have the same record. Still a long way to go for that 1st seed, and that bye that we have now that has changed. We still only have 7 teams making the playoffs, but in the next week or 2, it could be bumped to 8.
Now you only have the one team with the bye, and you're talking 3 teams in the NFC, Greg, with monster home field advantages, whether there's fans there or not. The Saints on the turf are a different team. The Green Bay, obviously, in January, it could be snow, obviously a different team. And Seattle, obviously, has a great home field advantage in their building, fans or not. So you're talking about 3 teams. I don't know that if Tampa gets the 1 seed, it's a huge deal versus the 2 or the 3 if they had a home game. But 3 teams that, if the path goes through them, they're going to certainly be heavy favorites in the NFC. Seahawks, Saints, and Packers.
And one of those teams in the West was Arizona going down to Miami. Huge win for the Dolphins. They have proven now that they are for real. I could not believe that there were actually, now I know this was from a source, somebody talked, I think it might have even been Schefter, posing the question about whether or not the Dolphins were starting Tua, mainly or most likely because of the fact they wanted to make sure that they wouldn't have to go out and get another quarterback, owning Houston's pick, which could be a pretty high pick in the 2021 draft. Now, I was talking to Alan Pupar, who covers the Dolphins with SI and Dolphin Digest, and now, as we both agreed that, any GM is going to have always that little bit of doubt. That's just common knowledge. You always are going to have a little bit of doubt. It would be ridiculous for you not to think, hey, you know what, or be smart enough to go down the road and say, look, before I get down there, I got to know this is my guy. So, but to make it seem like it was such a big deal based on the fact that Tua looked as bad as he did last week, once again shows you that the media gets carried away after one loss and one bad performance by Tua. Oh, maybe he's not the guy, and he just proved he is the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Since I am the media, it's hard for me to say the media gets carried away. I mean, I think you react to what the fan base is reacting to, and if the fan base is melting down, that you might not have the right guy, and if your sources are telling you that this is why they're doing it, and you believe their sources, you're right. I mean, look, there's strange things that happen in the NFL every single day that you know you need sources. You need to check in with people to figure out why it's happening because I'll use the Giants, the team I use best, as an example. Joe Judge said everything's good with Golden Tate, business as usual, and then he stuck him on the scout team and then left him off the travel roster for Washington. So that's not business as usual. You can't always take everything people say at face value.
No, and the point is that you have one bad game,
Correct.
and then everybody is all of a sudden going to start talking about, oh, maybe he's not the guy.
Well, part of that is his history too, right? Like his injuries, maybe he hasn't fully recovered, whatnot. Burrow looks so good, Herbert looks so good,
Sure.
so you're always measured against the guys in your draft class. But yeah, obviously it's nonsense. You can't, if you're the Dolphins, I don't care how bad Tua looks, you can't draft another quarterback this year. This cycle that now the Cardinals, I want to scream at the Cardinals for starting this.
Yeah,
trend.
with Josh Rosen. I was about to just say that. Yes. Yeah.
That was okay for them. It worked out for them.
Yeah.
Teams doing that every year is not a good idea.
No.
Just because it worked for the Cardinals doesn't mean it's what your team should do.
Yep. So just a tremendous drive by Tua deep in his own territory. Makes a tremendous pass to get a first down. He made a couple other great plays on the drive, including a Houdini-like act to rush down to the 10-yard line. It was the drive right now of his early career. And you also have, by the way, Jason Sanders has turned into a heck of a kicker this season.
Yeah.
Not only, I mean, this game it wasn't like the long field goals were like perfect, but Allen was actually the one that convinced me, even though he didn't realize he was convincing me to take him in my fantasy waiver wire, because he was telling me how, man, this guy, everything he kicks goes right down the middle. He doesn't even look anywhere near to look like he's even close to missing. So I pick him up. And sure enough, not only is he still doing well, but now he's kicking 50 and 56-yard field goals. It's been a tremendous, and it just shows you field goal kickers. They're like goalies. You don't know what you're going to get every year.
Well, as long as we're talking about kickers in that game, Zane Gonzalez missed a 49-yard field goal short. This isn't, Scott Norwood in, the kickers of 30 years ago where 49-yarders are like, bombs. Kickers have kicked 55, 56-yard field goals all the time now.
Yep.
You can miss left or right, of course, obviously. But short on a 49-yard field goal, you never see that anymore, especially not without wind or something knocking it down. Short on a 49-yard field goal, I'm stunned. I thought that was actually one of the key plays of the game. When they lined up for a 49-yard field goal down 3, the Cardinals, I said, okay, this game's tied, because I almost 49-yard field goals nowadays, like they're automatic the way these kickers kick.
Well, let's also keep in mind, Arizona had a 4th and 1 earlier in the game that they couldn't convert. Basically, it was 4th and inches, and they couldn't convert. Then they have 4th and 1 again, and they decide for the field goal. So 49 NFL kickers should make. But we know once you get to that 49-50 area, anything is possible towards an end of a game as well. If you don't have like an automatic kicker or Justin Tucker or a hot Jason Sanders, you never know. What do you do in that spot? Were you surprised that they didn't go for it, 4th and 1? I'm
surprised Kingsbury didn't go for it. He's just one of those guys you expect is aggressive. So, I'm surprised he didn't go for it. Flip that around and give me a coach who I think is a little bit more conservative, and I wouldn't be surprised he kicked it. But I'm surprised Kingsbury would kick on 4th and 1 for sure, 4th and inches for sure.
All right. Also, as far as the East, the AFC, the West, and the NFC, it was the Bills over Seattle, 44-34, and yeah, and I think this is one of those games where the Bills were kind of they were sleepwalking for several weeks, even though they beat the Jets, but that Patriot win wasn't pretty. Again, they just didn't look all that great, but that really seemed to take, whether it was a lot of pressure off of them or, hey, we beat the Patriots finally, And that's the kind of confidence that they needed because they just destroyed Seattle's defense, who has not looked too good, even though they have some key guys returning. Jamal Adams, Carlos
Hmm.
Dunlap came into the game. Didn't matter. 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a run for Allen for a TD. And even though Russell Wilson threw for 390, and by the way, Seattle
Bad.
had 7 sacks and the Bills had 5 sacks.
Hmm. It was garbage time mostly for Russell Wilson. He didn't play well, and he didn't play well in the Cardinals game either. So, really, look, the bar is incredibly high for Russell Wilson, but in their 2 losses, he has not played well.
He needs Chris Carson.
Yeah,
He needs a running game.
yeah. And Josh Allen, it was I think the best game of his young career by far.
Yep.
I mean, just the way he was a dual threat. He hit him and Diggs have a really good connection going. No, I mean they jumped out early, and that's kind of been the Bills' formula, right? So I've been impressed with the Bills. It's crazy to think 2 teams from the AFC East are finally going to make the playoffs, right? This is 20 years of a 1-team division.
Yeah.
2 teams finally going to make the playoffs, and neither one is the Patriots.
That's right. And hey, Seattle better watch out if they lose to the Rams this week. Rex Ryan will talk about how Seattle's really struggling. All right. So big wins for Buffalo and Miami. The West is going to be just fine. We're going to go over the standings and updated playoff picture after we review these games. Tennessee over Chicago. That was really one ugly offensive game by both teams. Tennessee was held to 228 total yards. Chicago's defense held Tennessee to 11 first downs. Derrick Henry to a 3.2 running average. And still, Tennessee put 24 points on the board and beat the Bears, who woke up in garbage time. But that's about it. The Bears, once again, their offensive line couldn't open holes for poor David Montgomery, who suffered a concussion. And that's just an ugly situation for Chicago's offense because the defense has been fantastic this season.
Yep, that's the difference. I mean, those teams are actually not that different, But Derrick Henry obviously makes a huge difference. They jumped out early. They had the 24-3 lead, I think it was, right? 24-3 for the Titans.
Just imagine how good the Bears could be if they had a really good offensive line that can control the running game the way Tennessee does.
Correct. Yep. Allen Robinson continues to be one of the most underrated players in the league because everything around him is just like inept on offense. There was something I wanted to say about this game. Oh, Desmond King, our trade
Yes.
talk edition last week. We singled out that deal, and I said I thought that was one of the quiet best deals
Sure.
of this not just of the deadline, but of this 2020 season. Obviously, it's a scoop and score. If some of it's being in the right place at the right time, but I just think when you look at what most guys go for in this league, Desmond King for a 6th-round pick was an absolute steal.
Yep.
An absolute steal, and he's already made a difference there. So.
All right, Baltimore and Indianapolis. This was a big game, and early on, until the Colts had Jonathan Taylor, who had issues fumbling the football at Wisconsin, fumbled the ball. Clark returns it to a touchdown. Until that, it looked like the Colts were in complete control of the football game. It was only 7-0, but they were kind of moving the ball a little bit. The Ravens were doing nothing offensively, and then boom, just one bad play. Good play by the defense for the Ravens and Clark to return that for the touchdown. And then even after that, Colts still had the lead at halftime. The Ravens winning a game after dropping 20 consecutive games that they trailed at halftime. I can't even nobody would have been able to guess if they would have picked the Jets, the Giants, and 20 other teams before the Ravens.
That's a great guess. Yeah, I would not. A great stat. I would not have known that. I saw Lamar Jackson tied Dan Marino for best start through 30 games by a quarterback, 25-5 through his first 30 career starts. But the play of that game, Greg, is the interception.
Yep.
That is not an interception. In no world is that an interception. How they reviewed that and still called that an interception, The Colts should be livid right now. That's one of those games you almost even protest, knowing protests don't get you anywhere. Just to point out how egregious, so you get people talking about how egregious that
Well,
call
you
is.
hear what they're saying, though, that if you freeze frame it, you'll see that the DB had his hands on the ball for 3 steps
Yeah,
and then dropped it.
that's like how we say Des Bryant didn't have that catch, but now if he had that catch against the Packers, well, now it would be a touchdown. Like, well, it can't be a touchdown 3 years ago and not a
Yeah,
touchdown.
it's terrible that you're doing that.
It be an
Yeah,
interception 3 years. It's not an interception. You don't need to freeze frame it.
I
You don't
know.
need to Zapruder film it down to the, like, 100th millimeter. Like, if you watch the play, it's not. I'm fine with replay. I don't need super slow mo Zapruder replay. Just regular replay. It's not an interception. It's just not.
Yeah, I was there were a couple of I think like a couple of weeks ago I saw a player catch the ball in the end, and then he dropped it after he hits the ground and then he drops it now and then they go to replay and I was like, what are they going to replay for? That's not complete. And then they called it a touchdown. I was like, when did they change that? Just a couple of years ago, there was no way that you had to maintain control, which I always thought the whole maintain control got so out of hand. Like 10 seconds, you had to have the ball in your hands or it would be incomplete. Now they're going the opposite direction.
Yeah, now it's too far. Yeah, I mean, the catch, no catch thing. I think they did a good job with it when they amended it a couple years ago because it's not as hot topic of an issue as it was before they amended it. But that one will make it an issue because it's just not. It's just not an interception. No one watches that game and says that's an interception.
Yeah, that was crazy. And
even Marcus Peters got up like this. He didn't get up like throw the flag.
Yeah.
Or he didn't get up like this. Like no. He just got up like this. Like, okay, I knocked it down.
Yeah.
I didn't intercept it.
By the way, Jackson once again led the Ravens in rushing. And Dobbins got an opportunity to run the ball because Ingram's out, but he still only had one more carry than Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards got the ball. They were in the red zone. He fumbles the ball. They get back into the red zone. They handed the ball off to him 3 straight times until he finally got in. It's like, this guy? Look, I like Gus Edwards. He's a Rutgers guy. I always thought he could be a pro because he's a tough, in between the tackles, goal line guy. I get that. But there is no way Gus Edwards should be getting the same amount of carries as a rookie, as a free agent guy coming into this league than J.K. Dobbins is getting.
Correct. And you should and I'm a big proponent just philosophically of you never hand it to the running back 3 straight times down by the goal line. You just don't. You got to mix in a play action. You got to mix in, especially if you have Lamar Jackson as your quarterback.
And by the way, Baltimore's defense had no sacks and 2 quarterback hits as Phillip Rivers passed 43 times.
Wow.
And get this, the Colts ran the ball 21 times, and they gained 112 yards for a 5.3 average. But for whatever reason, Frank Reich thought in a game that they really were in the entire game that they needed to throw the ball as often as they did, with, again, a cast of who are these receivers that this team has. And then on 4th and inches, he calls a pass play. And it was incomplete.
Yeah, no, it's very, very surprising. I'm just looking up a stat right now that I saw here. Baltimore has scored 20 points in 31 consecutive games, which is now the highest in NFL, longest streak in NFL history. I thought that was a neat little note. Wanted to get that straight when I pulled it up. Yeah, you don't think of that because you don't think of them as an offensive team, right? You don't think of them as a offensive team, Baltimore.
No.
And 20 points, 31 straight games is pretty impressive. But back to what you were saying about Indianapolis, great rushing numbers. But if memory serves me correct, didn't they only rush it like 6 times in the second half? They just totally. Taylor got buried, and then they just stopped running it altogether, really, in the second half. And if you're not going to run the ball against the Ravens, then you're not going to win because you're basically not controlling the clock. You're going to give more possessions to Lamar Jackson. Yeah. That's not a good formula against the Ravens.
And I also, a player who I think is one of the more underutilized players in the league is Nyheim Hines. This kid is an exciting kid with his hands on the ball. I'm telling you right now, if Alvin Kamara, if you switch them, Sure, Himes is not Kamara, but I bet you he would put up really good stats for an offense with the same offense, fill in for Alvin Kamara with the Saints. That's the type of guy he is. I don't get
Agreed.
why he doesn't get enough rushing carries.
Agreed. And really, it's only going to be worse in the future when Marlon Mack comes back and you have Marlon Mack, Taylor, and Hines. No, he's a nice piece. He's better than your typical third down, Darren
Absolutely.
Sproles type back.
Yes.
He's better than that.
Yep. That's a guy that what'll probably happen is that they'll have so many running backs and they can't afford it. He becomes a free agent. I think there would be a team out there that'll overpay a little bit for him.
Agreed. I do.
Calais Campbell suffered a calf injury, so we'll keep an eye on that for the Ravens because obviously he's a key part of their defensive line. Meanwhile, in the other controversial game we are going to overturn the pass completion in the end zone was Vegas and the Chargers. Vegas holds on to beat the Chargers. They reviewed. Now that one to me was a little bit more like I kind of understood why they called it incomplete. I wasn't sure what they were going to do, obviously, because of all the craziness I've seen over the last few weeks with the call. But I wasn't completely surprised they overturned it.
I was outraged at first when I saw it, and then still kind of outraged on the second replay, third, and then there's the one angle, almost like from across the field angle, that shows you the ball came out and hit the turf. And then as bad as the Ravens call was, I thought that was the right call. I know it's the Chargers and they lose some crazy way every week, so it feels like, oh God, can't they catch a break? But I think that was the right call. I really do. And let's not forget, there were two like that. Basically, third and fourth down was the same play.
Yeah, Mike Williams. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought the ball came loose on fourth down. I thought it was incomplete. But really, do we have to throw fades into one-on-one coverage on third and fourth down? Are we not better than that as an offensive staff in the NFL at this point? Run a pick play, run a quick slant, run a quarterback draw. Like, do we really, all the creativity we see in the NFL every week. I saw a couple years ago, the Bears on a 2-point conversion run the Philly special play on a 2-point conversion. Like, all the creativity in the NFL right now, and third and fourth down at the, whatever it was, 5-yard line, 4-yard line, you got to throw fades back to back. Yeah, it's just not good play calling, and you're asking somebody to make a ridiculous catch, and that's what happens.
Yeah, it's a low percentage play.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
It does go on. You see these low percentage plays that I still see in college and the NFL that blow my mind, and I'm like, why are you running this play? So the one thing I like, another one I don't like is like when it's a 2-point conversion or a fourth down, and you have the quarterback like run to the right. I hate that.
Take away half the field.
Yeah, exactly. I hate that.
Yeah.
So there's some play that just, but hey, look. Once again, Herbert looks like he's the real deal. Raiders won the game because they ran the ball 160 yards, the combination of Booker and Jacobs. Booker's actually done a good job for them, the former Denver Bronco.
It's not just Josh Jacobs there anymore. It's not just Josh Jacobs. They have a good tandem going.
Yeah, and this is still not the offensive line that Vegas needs to be as good as they need to be because the defense still struggles. Okay. Meanwhile, the Chiefs hold on to beat Carolina. And how about this? Just in case you were thinking about taking Carolina, which I am, against Tampa Bay this week, because I've seen this stat since the beginning of the season, and I saw it last year, and I'll keep taking Teddy Bridgewater in this circumstance. He is now 22-4 against the spread when he's a dog.
That's interesting.
How about that? I mean, Teddy Bridgewater, when everybody thinks that he can't win, he proves everybody wrong and does it against the Chiefs. They outgained the Chiefs. McCaffrey had a nice day, primarily because he caught 10 balls for 82 yards and a touchdown.
Do you know he has the most 10-catch games of any running back in NFL history? Isn't it like his third or fourth season? It's like his third or fourth season. He has the most 10-catch games of any running back in NFL history. I mean, yeah, McCaffrey makes a huge difference for the Panthers. And Matt Rule has done a really good job coaching that team. He might have a little too much faith in his kicker. That's 2 games in a row, or 2 of the last 3 weeks, where we've seen him bring out Joey Sly to try like a 65-yard field goal at the end of the game here. They got to get a little closer. But yeah, I mean, the Panthers, put it this way, the Panthers gave the Chiefs a bigger scare than maybe anyone will give the Chiefs this year, other than, losing to the Raiders.
Sure.
But maybe anyone will give them a better scare than the Ravens did, gave them a better scare than
Patriots.
Patriots did. Yeah, no, I think Carolina's kind of an up and coming team. When they get better talent, they could be next year's Miami this year.
Yep.
If that makes
Yep.
sense.
And they also the thing though that I didn't like was they had basically that last drive was one pass, because everything else they did on that last drive was terrible. Especially the last couple of plays. They had whatever it was, 8-9 seconds left.
Yeah, gotta get close.
All they had to do, like, especially with the last play, McCaffrey did a good job to get out of bounds on the first one, but they had 5 seconds left. I don't understand why you don't put one guy wide to the left, one guy wide to the right. And look, if they want to play up, all right, maybe we'll throw the Hail Mary then. We'll have a much better chance. If you want to play tight, I don't think they're going to play tight. On the left or the right, they're not going to play tight. Wherever they don't play tight, I'm just going to throw the ball 3 or 4 yards and have them go out of bounds. I don't know. They were trying this ridiculous, I'm going to try to throw it over 3 defenders. I didn't even know what that was, that last play.
No, I mean, that's kind of what, if you go back to the Cowboys-Steelers game, I mean, it's hard to kill Garrett Gilbert, right? He played a really good game, but the Steelers weren't taking the yards that were there at the end of the game either. Like, they were trying to throw the ball deep over, double the coverage into perfect slots. Just take the 8-yard out. If you can hit 4 straight 8-yard outs, that'll take about 26 seconds off the clock or whatever, and you gain 32 yards. That's, if you're getting a yard a second, that's pretty good. So.
All right. So anyway, still a good. By the way, to Kansas City, 45 pass attempts for Patrick Mahomes. They ran the ball 12 times for 30 yards. So far, Le'Veon Bell hasn't been working out for the Chiefs. They got to get the running game going, because this is what happens when the Chiefs, if you ever see the Chiefs either lose or are in close games when they can't run the ball, you have to make the Chiefs one-dimensional.
Good point. And it's not Le'Veon Bell I'm worried about. It's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like the first running back picked in the draft. He had like 170 yards or something in his NFL debut against the Texans, and he's had 1 or 2 good games since, but he has not been at the caliber of like a James Robinson or somebody that. He's not been a difference maker for the Chiefs, I don't think.
Okay, now speaking of the Pittsburgh-Dallas game, I'm going to ask you this one. And I know every circumstance is different, especially when you have a quarterback that you're not used to having in the game. But I think that I'm always looking at this in situations where when my team's behind and there's about 2 minutes left in the game and I have 3 timeouts left, and I'm on like 3rd down or 4th down, especially 3rd down. And I'm saying to myself, I'm already thinking ahead, which I gotta believe the coaches are. So I'm thinking ahead, and I'm going, okay, well, if they don't get this, at least I've got 3 timeouts. I can stop them on 3, and I get the ball back with a reasonable amount of time. I can get a minute and a half, and I got a shot. What you don't want to happen is to use up one of those timeouts, which is what the Cowboys did. It's 4th and 10. They call timeout. That left them with 2 timeouts. Just imagine how much closer that game could have been if they had that extra 30 or 45 seconds.
And what were the Steelers doing? Going for it on up 24-19?
Yeah, I didn't understand that either.
Yeah, it was a weird coach game.
That was like, we don't want them to block the field goal and return it for a touchdown play.
You know what it was like, Greg? It was like neither coach expected the game to be that close. It's honestly, I'm being a wise guy, but I'm really not. It was like neither coach expected the game to be that close, so they both kind of weren't on the top of their game in the 4th quarter. Very strange decisions made in that game.
I don't think anybody actually felt that Dallas was going to win that football game, even when they were winning by 10 points in the 4th quarter. You just kind of knew that Pittsburgh was going to win that game.
As somebody who needed Pittsburgh to lose for my survivor pool, I never thought they were gonna. I was like, this could knock out quite a bit of people. But even when it was 19-9 in the 4th quarter, I didn't think Pittsburgh was going to lose. And then Juju Smith-Schuster trying the Terrell Owens celebrate on the star. We're back there now. 20 years later, we're back to the point where you try to celebrate on the Dallas Star and the home team gets pissed off. I mean, we got to go back there.
No, we don't actually. We hope not. That doesn't speak well of Juju, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, as far as the other games, Atlanta, it pretty much said, well, this is it for Denver. They had a chance to get the 500. Locke threw for over 300 yards, rushed for a touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had a nice game, but the Falcons, they like winning in the second half of the season when they're already eliminated. So that's a second straight year that's going to happen. And they're going to kill, of course, again, they're going to kill their draft pick status, which I'm sure their fans love.
And it's crazy because, like, last year they saved Dan Quinn's job with this, and now they're probably going to get Raheem Morris the job with this.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tricky one.
And in reality, they need a restart.
Yeah, they need an offensive coach. That's what they need. Minnesota, Dalvin Cook. We talked about Dalvin Cook for the last couple of, especially after his performance last week, about how he's just amazing, and he's such a key part of that team. 206 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns.
A dark horse MVP candidate. The problem is you're not going to give it to him if the Vikings finish 6-10. But boy, is he good! Boy, is he good! He is. I'm trying to think. He's the best running back in the NFL right now.
I think so. Yeah. Again, every year's different, but the way he's going right now, yeah.
Caffrey maybe, but.
Nah, I think Dalvin Cook is right now.
Yeah, might be Dalvin Cook.
He's so zoned in right now. It's incredible.
Yeah, might be Kamara, but I if you ask me right now today, if I had to pick one for the rest of the season, who's it going to be? I think I'd pick Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, because Kamara and McCaffrey make their hay with their receiving ability.
That's fine. That's part of being a running back.
Sure, absolutely. But Cook right now, his running is just nobody's doing what he's doing. And that includes Henry. Henry's had the one good game, one big performance, but Cook's been doing it. This is like the third really big performance of the season. Giants beat Washington. The Redskins could actually have a chance for first place if they had not played the Giants this year.
Yeah. Basically, the Giants can't lose to Washington and can't beat anyone else. Here's a crazy stat for you. Daniel Jones is 4-0 against Washington. And he's 1-16 against the rest of the NFL.
Wow.
And he won his debut. So he's lost 16 straight games to teams that aren't named Washington, and he's 4-0 against Washington.
That is crazy. That is ugly.
The Giants can't beat anybody else but Washington, and Washington has no problem beating Dallas and Philadelphia, but can't beat the Giants.
That's a good one. Giants, 166 rushing yards. That was the surprise. Morris and Gallman.
Alfred Morris. I have 10 people a day ask me, like, is that the same Alfred Morris
right?
that won me my fantasy league championship in 2012?
Yeah, right?
Yep, same guy. Still chugging along.
This is Alex Smith's team now.
Yes.
So.
Yep, Kyle Allen, a gruesome injury. Looked actually a little bit like Dak's injury to me. Both against the Giants. Yeah, it's Alex Smith's team now going forward, which, feel good story. He seems to be handling the hits pretty well physically. I'd like to see Alex. Look, Alex Smith is better than Dwayne Haskins and Kyle.
Oh, yeah,
Allen.
sure.
If you're playing the best guy.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best guy for your system or the guy with the brightest future. If you're just playing to win every Sunday, then Alex is the guy you want to have.
So we'll see. I mean, Washington has their everybody's still in it in the NFC East. Houston held on to beat Jacksonville. Jacksonville, the one good thing they've done over the last couple of years is find these late round quarterbacks and free agent running backs. We've talked about Robinson quite a bit, but this time it's Jake Luton from Oregon State, 304 yards. He ties the game with a 13-yard touchdown run, but they can't get the 2-point conversion. And that really was a bummer for Jet fans everywhere that Jacksonville couldn't find a way to win the game. So Jets are still only a game up on a couple of teams like Jacksonville. J.J. Watt with his 100th sack, and after what he said this past week, and the way the Texans are so desperate to replenish their draft stock,
Yeah.
J.J. Watt has to be traded in the offseason.
I would agree. Yeah. He's just meant so much to that city. Forget that franchise. He's just meant so much to that city. But, yeah, I would agree. It's time for him to go somewhere else. And
what would you have to give up for him?
Whew, good question.
Because he's got his injury history.
How old is he now?
Oh, he's got to be 30, right?
Oh, I think he's older than that.
He's older than that, huh?
I would think he's got to be 30, pushing 33. Hold on.
Well, if he's that old, then, jeez.
He'll be 32 next. He'll be 32 in March.
Okay. So
32.
You're going to
32.
get him at 32 with an injury history. Do you get a first rounder?
I don't think so. Maybe
Second
a 2
rounder,
and a
then.
3 or a 2 and a 4, something like that.
Well, you got to make the deal. And any team that is trying to win a championship, like Seattle, those teams next year, you have to go ahead and give up that second-round draft pick.
Yeah, a 2 and a 4, something like that.
Absolutely. So that'll be interesting to keep an eye on in the offseason there. Okay, Now, as far as you got the Monday night game tonight, and here's an interesting thing for next week's schedule. Because at first, I was like, this doesn't make sense. And it took me a couple of seconds to realize why there were all these 4 o'clock games, and that's the Masters. I just thought it was interesting how the NFL worked their schedule because of a golf tournament. But this week, you have 5 1 o'clock games and 6 4 o'clock games. So imagine that, because the Masters final round on Sunday will start at 10 o'clock in the morning and end at 3 o'clock.
There you go. I'm not a golf guy at all, so I was wondering so doesn't the Masters usually end at like 7 o'clock?
Yeah, that's why I always record all my stuff a week in advance, and I was going into my weekends this week, and I went, wow, why is the Masters starting? I figured that was, they're going to start early and it's going to be an 8-hour show, but then it stopped at 3 o'clock. Okay. And I was like, well, that's strange. Why? They're stopping at 3 o'clock because because they're going to televise it on CBS.
Okay.
So that takes away one of their football games.
Are you a?
Yes.
Well, it's usually in April, right? So
yes.
You don't have to worry about daylight savings and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
Are you a golfer?
Yes.
You are.
What's that?
Are you a golfer?
Yes. Oh no. Do I play? No. I'd like to play more than I do, but I handicap golfing every week.
Okay. All right.
Do you play golf?
I have never played golf in my life. I've never swung a golf.
I mean, when I played it years back, it was one of those things where I could easily get addicted to it. I see why they get addicted to it, but you can only play it if you have money, you have time. It's just not an easy sport to get addicted to.
I don't have 4 hours a day.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just not. Thursday night football is a huge game. The Colts at Tennessee. So this is the biggest game of the season in the South. Tennessee has a 1-game lead. Who do you think is favored in that game?
Did they play already, or is this the first?
This is the first, I believe.
Yeah. And where is it?
Tennessee.
Well, bettors hate Tennessee, so I'll say the Colts are probably like 1.5 favorites.
The opposite. Tennessee won.
Okay.
But yeah that's about right. Because that's still showing no respect.
Yeah, bettors hate Tennessee. So but Thursday night, short week, Tennessee's a home team. So you gave them all the advantages, basically. The home team on a short week,
That's
and
true.
they're still only a point favorite.
Yep.
Tennessee's better. They're the better team, but the Colts defense is better. So I don't know.
I think the Colts messed up that they didn't find a way to get a receiver at the deadline. I don't know how you do not give Phillip Rivers another option because they are a really good defensive team now. Yeah. They can run the ball enough, and they have a really good offensive line.
They're hoping their second-round pick, Michael Pittman, who's missed a lot of time.
That's it, yeah. And they're hoping they can somehow get T.Y. Hilton to wake up.
They're hoping Pittman kind of comes into his own here. I want to say he missed 4 games or so on IR. So
about that, yeah.
they're hoping he's almost like a trade deadline acquisition where you haven't had almost like a baseball kind of thing where you don't have a pitcher for a long time and he comes back in August. That's what they're hoping Pittman is like an addition to the team. And now that he's back healthy, I think he had 3 or 4 catches yesterday. But
Yeah, he led them. Yeah, yesterday. He actually did pace the team. He was the top receiver. So that will be very important for them. The 2 top games on Sunday will be 3 NFC teams involved. Buffalo at Arizona.
Good game.
And Seattle at the Rams.
Yeah.
So Rams get the off week. And you can't like what the Rams looked like with the Miami game, but we know Seattle can't do what Miami did to Jared Goff. So anyway,
I'll be tuned into that Buffalo Arizona game.
Yes,
I mean, yeah. Look, the NFC.
Yeah, but they're
West,
both at 4:00. That's the thing that I get why they are because they're West Coast teams. But there's only the top game at 1:00 is Tampa Bay and Carolina. All the good games are at 4:00. It's typical NFL. We're going to make sure we put all the good games at 4:00.
What time is Giants Eagles?
1:00.
1:00.
Yeah. You got Vegas at 1. Actually, I did notice that. That was strange. I noticed that they had Vegas at 1:00.
Okay.
They could do that.
Who do they have?
Well, they're playing Denver, but at 1:00. That's what it said. Is that like USC playing at 9:00 in the morning against Arizona State? And by the way, that game was so ugly offensively. I wonder why, right? When you play a 9:00 game.
That was the game that they scored like 2 touchdowns like the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, they were doing nothing all day. Arizona State was clearly outclassing them. And it was ugly, though.
It's amazing how many guys don't know onside kick protocol. Like, don't know that you can't, don't know that you can touch it before the kicking team touches it. Don't know that you're not supposed to dive at the ball. Like, it's amazing how many teams don't know how to handle an onside kick.
And that's why you just wish they would have kept it in the NFL because it makes it a lot more. The chances just are. Okay, Dallas did it. That's probably the only time it's ever going to work this year.
It's under 10%. I know that.
And the excuse they must have. I mean, I guess they really had data about injuries. I don't ever remember seeing rashes of injuries on onside kicks. I don't get that.
No, but I don't think it was the leg injury where the guy gets carted off. I think it was the long-term helmet-to-helmet full force from 10 yards away
concussions and things like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, key games this week: the Chargers at Miami. So that should be a fun game. Chargers will probably have a late lead.
Yeah, Chargers will lose on the last second in the last play game.
Pittsburgh undefeated, hosting Cincinnati.
Okay.
And Sunday night football, Baltimore at New England. So if after New England wins tonight, they have to beat Baltimore next week to prove that they're still in it.
Don't jinx New England tonight. That's my survivor pick.
I guess I shouldn't jinx them. You're right, because I do want Trevor Lawrence. You're right.
Yeah.
And can you believe this? Minnesota at Chicago next Monday night.
Oh.
And Minnesota's the favorite.
I believe that. Yeah.
Isn't that how has that's got to be some sort? I got to ask my handicapper on Wednesday if that's ever happened where a team that's a winning team at home is the underdog to a 3-win team, a 3-5 team.
No, I mean 2 teams going in total opposite directions for sure. Vikings are hot, probably too little, too late, and Bears are being exposed as everybody thought they would be. So I'm not surprised by that spread at all.
And then finally, the playoffs. It's 4 teams for 2 spots in the AFC. You have Bills, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Tennessee, and Kansas City. There would be the teams that are in. And then it's a 4-way tie at 5-3 between Miami, Cleveland, the Colts, and Las Vegas.
For 2 spots?
For 2 spots out of those 4.
Who are you giving the wild cards to?
Out of those 4?
But
right now I'm giving it to Baltimore, and that's it.
You're counting Baltimore in.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just 4 teams for 2 spots.
Yep.
Who you got? What are the 4 teams?
Miami, Cleveland, Colts, Raiders.
The best of those teams.
Miami.
And
the Colts.
Yeah, Miami and the Colts are the best of those teams.
And in the NFC, if you count the Eagles, well, one NFC East team, you have Green Bay, Saints, Bucks. That's 4 teams.
Yeah.
Seattle is 5. And the last 2, it has to be the 2 teams that are mathematically in right now, which are the Rams and Arizona.
Yeah, except if, who else? You're not going to get...
The only one I'm knocking out are the Bears.
They're not making it.
And the other teams are San Francisco and Minnesota.
Yeah, no, you're right. The NFC looks pretty clear then.
Yeah, right? The NFC, it's the same 6 teams probably, plus the NFC East champ.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Well, we kind of knew that in the beginning of the season. This is exactly playing out the way we thought of the 2 conferences.
The NFC East champ is the Eagles. I mean, that we can stop saying NFC East champ. They're the only team that's even functional. So it'll be the Eagles.
And if the Giants can beat the Eagles, then your prediction of a team winning the East with 6 wins, that was, could happen.
I think it will happen, yeah. The only difference is I think it'll be the Eagles at 6-9-1 instead of 6-10.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Ryan, appreciate it as always. We'll talk. We'll wrap up Week 10 next week. And I've got to also I know your personal life and your business and everything is so tied up that you got yourself a break that you didn't have to go to the game tonight.
Yeah, I don't know how I pulled that off. I still got Giants calls at 4:00, but
all right, thanks, Ryan.
See you, Greg.